It's been a trend the last 3 or 4 years to hype up seemingly every short or light defensive tackle as the next Aaron Donald. First it was Grady Jarrett, and then it was Jonathan Bullard, and then even just last year it was Taven Bryan. But most of those hope-filled comparisons have been more or less wrong because I feel like people have mischaracterized what makes Donald so incredible in the first place. His extraordinary dominance is not just about being ultra explosive or super flexible or having a natural leverage advantage because of his size, but rather it's about vision, instinct, and a mastery of technique. There are a lot of fluid and explosive freak athletes in the league, but there's only one Aaron Donald because he knows how to maximize his gifts to be the best possible football player. I have waited for 5 years to see another defensive tackle come out of college who has that same uniquely terrifying combination of power, quickness, technique, and instincts, someone that we can truly compare to Donald. And with Alabama's Quinnen Williams entering the NFL this year, I think we finally found our guy. On the surface, what makes Williams a slam dunk top 10 pick is easy to see. He's big, he's strong, he's more explosive than anyone his size has any right to be. But what makes him a contender for the first overall pick is the stuff under the surface. The polish, the intelligence, the motor. Like Donald before him, he doesn't just have physical gifts, he knows how to maximize those gifts into being an all-pro caliber pass rusher. This sack right here against LSU I think illustrates that better than any other play that Quinnen made all year. He's in a 3 technique alignment in a 3-point stance, which is obviously pretty typical, but I want you to pay attention to how Williams sits in that stance because it's very indicative of the style he likes to play. This is called a light 3-point stance, obviously contrasting with a heavy 3-point stance. And a light stance means that his feet are nearly parallel and his weight distribution is more over the balls of his feet than it is over his hand planted on the ground. In terms of biomechanics, the more weight you distribute to your hand by leaning forward, the more it tends to help you fire out of your stance forward and get upfield. But if your weight is over your feet and you're not leaning so far forward, you can come out of that stance more conservatively and you're less focused on immediate penetration. And since you're not penetrating right off the snap, that then helps you with reading the block in front of you before you make a move to get upfield so that you can always put yourself in the right spot. So, back to the end zone angle of this play again because that's the one that's important, and you can see off the snap that Williams' first step is not forward. It's widening out laterally while he reads the block. Again, his weight distribution in his stance allows him to make this first step laterally without losing his balance and falling on his face. And while he's making that lateral step and reading the block in front of him, he sees the guard sliding to the offensive right. In fact, the whole line is sliding right in this protection, so quickly recognizing that the guard is walling off anything penetrating into that A-gap is critical to his read and react style of play. Seeing that slide, Williams instead opts to go into the B-gap by exploding off that left foot that he first stepped with and finishing with a nice little club swim move past the guard's hip. If you watch my Aaron Donald episode a little over a year ago, this move probably looks pretty familiar because Williams executes it the exact same way that Donald does by linking his hands to his feet. That means that the right hand is linked to the right foot and the left hand is linked to the left foot, and that is a crucial detail because that one little technical nuance is really the key to both Aaron's and Quinnen's effectiveness. Watch this move again. As Williams clubs away the guard's punch with his right hand, he leads with his right foot in the direction he wants to go. As he brings the left hand over to finish with the swim move, he simultaneously links it to his left foot, stepping up to gain ground to get past that guard's hip before he can recover. Once you clear that hip of a blocker, you're pretty much home free, but remember he's still also got to deal with the left tackle double teaming him on the slide and protection, so he's still got more work to do to finally split that B-gap. The tackle catches him semi-off balance and when he doesn't have the greatest leverage because he hits him in the middle of that swim move, so truth be told he's in a bit of a rough spot here, but because he's Quinnen Williams, he's still able to rely on his technique and instincts to get himself out of a jam that would lock down almost every other defensive tackle out there. Check out his incredible reaction time here as he splits that double team. He feels the tackle coming right at him, so as he finishes the swim with his left hand, he then turns that left into a club hand for a combo going the other way. Williams gives a great shove into the tackle's shoulder, again stepping up with that left foot as he uses the left hand simultaneously to help him gain ground, and as he brings the right arm over this time, he once again crosses over with that right foot and tries to get as far as he can into that gap with that one step so that he can then come out clean on the other side, which of course he does. This is teaching tape for every defensive lineman in the country, regardless of what level they play at, high school, college, or pro, on how to use your hands, feet, and hips together to defeat a double team. It shows how to rush with a plan and how drilling footwork and hand usage at the same time can give you an almost subconscious muscle memory that will do all the hard work for you. And in fact, this sack by Quinnen is the only time I've seen a defensive tackle in the last 2 years, besides Aaron Donald himself, pull off this back-to-back club swim combo against a double team for a sack. And that's not to say that other tackles are not beating double teams, because of course there are some guys out there that do beat doubles regularly, but not in this way and not this cleanly. These kinds of sacks are reserved only for the very upper echelon of interior pass rushers, and to me, Quinnen Williams already looks like he's going to be one of them before he even enters the league. To put it bluntly, as confident as I felt about Quentin Nelson being a future All-Pro last year, that's how confident I feel about Williams today. He is quite simply the most versatile and the most intimidatingly dominant defensive tackle that I've seen coming out of college in the last half-decade. If you want him to rush off the edge as a base end, he'll rush off the edge. If you want him to push straight through the pocket as a 3 technique, he'll push the pocket. If you want him to penetrate and disrupt running lanes, obviously he's gifted in that area as well, but he also knows how to stack, shed, and play 2 gaps at once like some defensive systems would prefer him to do instead. He even excels at doing the thankless dirty work of past Alabama nose tackles like Darren Payne, where he just absorbs a ton of attention, takes on double teams, and lets the linebackers run completely free to make plays. It literally doesn't matter what scheme you draft him for, he can play at a Pro Bowl level within it, because everything that makes him a great player is not solely tied just to measurements or 40 times or test results. He is, as the old cliche goes, just a really damn good football player that knows how to beat you as much with his brain as with his brawn. This tackle later in that same LSU game is one of my favorite plays he made across all the games that I studied, because it specifically shows off how smart he is. It's 1st and 10, and as he shifts out from a true 0 technique to a 3 technique, check out LSU's formation here. It's a single back pistol with a tight end stack behind the left tackle. Now, usually when you've got a tight end stack like this, it's for one of 2 reasons. Either A, you're running him across the back of the formation as a backside seal block on a split zone run, or B, you're pulling him from the backside to the front side on a power run. Just knowing LSU and their tendencies, it's a pretty good bet that if they're running at all here, it's probably going to be power instead of zone. So just based on their alignment alone, Williams can make an educated guess about where the ball is going and how they're going to try and block him. As the ball is snapped, check out his eyes and his anticipation of the play. Again, he's taken that first step laterally to his left instead of blindly shooting upfield from his stance, and because he's not shooting upfield and he's getting his eyes on the center, he can see this down block coming from a mile away. The center's one job on this play is to pin Williams to the backside just long enough for those pulling blockers to connect on the front side and open up a lane, but Quinnen is having none of it. He knew this play was coming from the start, so instead of taking on that block and staying on the backside, he fights over the top of it and finds his way to the ball. And if he didn't do that, by the way, and if he didn't identify this play and defeat it immediately, there would have been a perfect lane for the back to cut up into for a good gain. But instead, Quinnen was there to fill that lane on time and force the runner even further outside into his safety help. And by the way, can we just take a moment to appreciate the motor here for him to never stop running and never quit until the whistle blows, despite doing way more than his part to blow up this run. I mean, the guy started the play as a 3 technique taking on a down block on the backside, and then he of all people ended up being the one to hit the running back on the sideline as if he's a linebacker. That is nuts, and the fact that his motor was still running this hot late in the game that they were winning by 4 possessions really speaks to how bad he wants it on every snap. This dude is all gas, no brakes, and when you throw in his incredible instincts, intelligence, technical mastery, and obviously his physical gifts as well, I truly cannot find a weakness in his game. Hell, you could even argue that as a prospect, Williams should be graded even higher than Donald was coming out of Pittsburgh because he's bigger, longer, and arguably stronger as a run defender, while also having polish as a pass rusher. And I don't say that lightly either, because I was one of the few people that had Donald as a top 5 kind of talent, even though he ended up going in the middle of the first, but that's just how strongly I feel about both of them as prospects then and now. I don't care what team we're talking about, what scheme they're running, or who they already have on the roster. Williams fits everyone, so he deserves to be considered as a realistic draft choice for everyone, including the Cardinals at first overall. Whether Arizona will actually pull the trigger on him at that pick is still anyone's guess, but let me ask you this. For a team that has to face the destruction that a guy like Donald brings with him twice a year, could you really blame them for taking their shot on the next best thing? I said it back in 2014, and I'll say it again. When given the chance to draft a unicorn, don't overthink it. Just turn in the pick, look up to the sky, and say 2 little words to the gods of football. Thank you. Speaking of thank yous, I want to thank all of you for watching this week's episode, and I want to thank this week's sponsor as well, Manscaped. They are exploding right now in the men's grooming market, so you might have already heard of them, or you might have seen them not too long ago on Shark Tank. They were pitching the exact same kit that they just sent me a couple months ago to try out, and I've been using it ever since, especially when I was traveling during the season. I did a lot of work on the road, and I loved it for that reason. It comes with a really strong waterproof cordless trimmer that has a ceramic blade so it won't cut you, a whole bunch of different size guides for different lengths as well. It's got a safety razor, which I had never even used the safety razor before they sent me one, but that ended up being the thing that I love the most about it. I love it way more than my old disposables. It's a much closer and smoother shave, and also infinitely cheaper in the long term, which I didn't expect. I didn't know that you could buy like 100 replacement razors for like around $6 or $7 online, compared to spending obviously many multiples of that a year on replacement heads for my old razor. So that was definitely an unexpected plus that I really liked about it. It also comes with a deodorant, this body wash that smells amazing, a cologne, an anti-chafing aloe. It's got a few shave mats, of course the really nice case to put it all in that was great for travel. I mean, literally anything you can think of that a guy might need for grooming and maintenance, this kit has it, and I've loved it ever since they sent it to me. So if you guys want to get one either for yourself or maybe someone else you know that is in desperate need of something like this, head to the link down in the description below and enter promo code BRETT20 for 20% off your order, free shipping, and a free gift included as well. I promise you won't regret it. As for me, I of course will be back again next week with another draft prospect breakdown, but if you cannot wait until then to ask me about a certain player or team, or maybe even potentially a free agent you have your eye on, I am launching a long overdue patron-only Q&A session over on my Patreon. You can ask me whatever you want, football related or not, and I will answer it exclusively for all patrons. It doesn't even matter how much you sign up to donate, it can be as low as $1, and that will give you access to the Q&A, and not only your questions, but also everyone else's questions too. So make sure to stop on by for that. I look forward to your questions, and until then, later.